Getting a good night's sleep on a backcountry trip is one of the most sought after, but also one of the most elusive aspects of backpacking. Finding a comfortable sleep system can take your backpacking trips to the next level, while being uncomfortable and getting bad sleeps can make you want to hang up your pack forever. I've tested dozens of sleeping pads, sleeping bags, quilts, and pillows, and probably get as good a night's sleep in the backcountry as I do at home. But this new sleep system from a brand that I've actually trashed in the past has me really excited for what it could do for a lot of people out there when it comes to getting a good night's sleep in the backcountry. So how does this sleep system from one company achieve that next level of comfort, and how do all these components work together in order to help you get a better night's sleep? Today we're gonna find out. There are 4 components that all work together in order to help this sleep system achieve peak comfort. The base of this sleep system obviously is a sleeping pad, and this sleeping pad is doing a lot of things right. If you guys follow the channel, you know that one of my favorite sleeping pads on the market is the REI Helix. And this pad kind of seems like it might have come from the same factory. It has the same sort of dimpled baffling system throughout, which I find is really effective at relieving pressure points. If I'm sleeping on my side, my arm doesn't go numb and fall asleep. And if I'm sleeping on my back, then I get a good kind of support throughout the mattress. The mattress is decently thick at about 3.5 inches. And comes in a whole bunch of different sizes. This is the size regular wide, so it's 25 inches wide and 72 inches long. You can also get it in 20-inch wide versions, as well as ones that are a bit longer for those tall people out there. The mattress also has a valve on the top, 2-way valve, so you open up one flap in order to inflate it, and you open up the second flap in order to dump air and deflate the pad. I really like when valves are on top of the pad because you can let out a little bit of air by pressing on the valve a little bit, which allows you to fine tune the firmness of the pad, or you can add air in if it kind of decreases in firmness due to the temperature dropping over the course of the night. But it doesn't matter how comfortable and easy to use a pad is if it isn't warm and relatively lightweight. The pad has an advertised R value of 5, and it achieves that R value warmth rating due to using reflective film inside of it suspended throughout the pad in order to reflect heat back to you and not lose that heat to the ground. I've been wary of pads that use reflective film ever since I tested out the Big Agnes Zoom UL and saw that all of the Mylar film in that pad just dropped right to the bottom and rendered it effectively useless inside the pad. I've held this pad up to the sunlight and I can see that the reflective film does stay suspended throughout the pad. And my guess is that it's using a very similar technology and construction approach to the REI Helix, which is a pad that for me has been warm well below freezing and on quite cold ground. I've only tested this pad down to freezing on relatively warm ground, but it was toasty warm at those temperatures and I didn't feel any cold spots. This pad on my scale weighs 602 grams, so it's not one of the lightest or even close to one of the lightest pads on the market, but it is a pretty good weight for the warmth and comfort that you get out of it. We'll have to see about durability long-term with this pad. It uses a 20 denier polyester, which we've seen some problems with the Nemo tensor in the past. And I've also seen some problems with the weld points in this dimpled baffling system with both the Nemo tensor and Sea Summit Ultralight XT. After about 3 years and quite a bit of use, I started to see leaks around these weld points. The second component, and probably the secret sauce of this entire system, is a sheet that goes over top of the pad. If you haven't guessed yet, then you probably are going to be able to figure it out now that this system is made by Zenbivy. And Zenbivy's been making systems like this for a long time, and I've tested them out. But the issue that I've had in the past is that the systems are fairly difficult to use, and they're also quite heavy. I'm not sure if it's due to my complaints or just the timelines of development for Zenbivy, but they've now released an ultralight version of their sheet system. So instead of going all the way down the entire pad, this sheet is only half of the pad and is made with materials that are quite a bit more lightweight than the other one. This new sheet has a lot of innovations packed into it. First of all, it's lighter because it's only half of the sleeping pad. The traditional Zenbivy sheets go all the way down the entire pad, which makes this sheet weigh only 81 grams, which is quite lightweight for all the functionality that you get out of it. The main benefit of this sheet system are these flaps that you connect the quilt of the system to. Each of these flaps has 4 hooks on it that you hook into different places on the quilt in order to lock the quilt onto the sleeping pad and prevent drafts. In the past, I've found these hooks to be a little bit of a pain to deal with, especially since they're all colored the exact same, and I found setting up the system very difficult. Whereas this new one, all of these hooks have a different color associated with how they line up on the quilt. It makes it really easy to set up and take apart. The hooks are also a new design that I find a lot easier to both undo and do up. I have pretty bad arthritis in both my hands, especially when it starts getting cold out, and I found the old hooks to be a little bit difficult to use. There's also a hood at the top end here that you can tuck a pillow into and pull up over your head. It comes in both an uninsulated and an insulated version. I have here the uninsulated, and I probably would get the insulated version down the road because the uninsulated version, I don't really see the point of it. You could just take that off and save a little bit of weight. Okay, let's jump into the quilt because this is another spot where Zenbivy dropped a lot of weight off of the previous versions and the other versions of this sleep system. Other Zenbivy quilts use pretty heavy materials, heavy down as well as heavy shell materials, but this Ultralight quilt uses 10 denier Pertex nylon for the shell material and then 900 power fill down. Those are some of the lightest materials that you can get if you're making a quilt. Because that, the 25-degree version that I have here weighs 539 grams, which is very comparable to other quilts on the market that have the same sort of temperature rating. Like the sleeping pad, the quilt comes in 3 different sizes, the regular wide, and then the large size. I have here the regular wide version, and honestly, unless you're very small, I would probably just go with the regular wide or the large version because a 25-inch wide pad and that extra space under the quilt is the way to go if you're prioritizing comfort. Like I mentioned, this is an entire system, and I already kind of talked about it with the sheet, but the quilt clips in these little hooks with little loops, and it's all color-coded, which is awesome. And then it prevents drafts and helps lock in the quilt onto your sleeping pad. While pad straps, in order to attach a quilt to a sleeping pad, have worked great for me, I know that there can be a little bit finicky for other people out there. And this system just is kind of foolproof and bulletproof when it comes to locking the quilt onto the sleeping pad and preventing drafts. I don't know if Zenbivy kind of tweaked some of the design, but with previous versions that I've tested, I could still feel drafts and get drafts coming in through this thin material. But with the way this is all put together, it kind of wraps the quilt around you a little bit, and it's pretty much impossible to get drafts through it now. There's a couple things going on at the head end of the quilt. There's a draft tube, which is really nice for helping to prevent drafts coming in around the neck. And then there's a neck cinch in order to kind of cinch everything down within the neck area. What I wish the system had that it doesn't is a snap to snap the 2 ends of the bottom together in order to then create a really good seal around your neck. I know why. It's part of the design philosophy of this. You're supposed to tuck the corners up into the hood and then cinch down the neck in order to help prevent drafts, but I find that isn't as effective as a full-on snap and cinch system. That being said, I've been toasty warm without it at freezing, but I would be hesitant to use a system without a full neck snap down below about 20 degrees Fahrenheit or -6 degrees Celsius. The last little detail that I want to talk about with this quilt, because there's a lot of awesome design details with this entire system, and that's the footbox. So the footbox has this overlapping system here, which really kind of locks in a lot of heat when you have it fully done up, but I found it's almost too warm for my feet. My feet run warm. So there's a little hook and loop halfway kind of up to your waist. You can undo that. It kind of opens up the bottom, adds a lot more space to the footbox, and allows your feet to kind of breathe and be a little bit more cool. But that brings us to the pillow. It's the final component of this system, and Zenbivy did a lot of really cool things with the pillow. It's almost its own little system on its own. So here's the pillow, and let me tell you why I think this is an awesome design that Zenbivy has put together. On the outside, you have a sheet, and this sheet is just kind of your basic sheet, but it does have a couple things that make it a little bit special that we'll talk about once we bring this over and set it up with the entire system. And then on the inside, we have 2 different things that work together in order to add a lot of comfort. So at the bottom, and this could be brought on its own, you don't need to have it as part of this entire system, is a TPU air bladder, super lightweight. So if you're going as ultra as possible, you could just bring this, tuck this into the hood of the Zenbivy and be fine. It's a little thin though, so I probably wouldn't sleep super comfortably being a side sleeper if I was using just this, but if you're a back sleeper, it'd be no problem. It has a good width to it and it's just a generally good size. But then tucked on top of that, we have this down topper, which is just something that adds a ton of comfort. The topper isn't super lightweight at 174 grams, but it's the heaviest of this entire system, with the sheet weighing 37 grams and then the TPU bladder weighing 57 grams. But when you take this down topper and then stick it on top of the TPU bladder, it has a lot of height especially for side sleepers, and it's just nice and cushy and comfortable. It's sometimes a little bit too warm, so if you do run warm in the head area, then just be aware of that. But I have probably never slept on a pillow as comfortable as this. The dual system is just very effective and is kind of reminiscent of the Nemo Philo pillow, which has that foam topper on top of an air bladder. But let's bring this entire pillow system over to the sleep system, and then I'll show you how it integrates with the sleeping pad, the sheet, and the quilt. So you could just take this pillow, tuck it into the hood, and it's probably going to stay in place quite nicely. You're going to get a really good night's sleep. But what Zenbivy has done, which works very well, is they added 2 hooks onto the pillowcase, and these 2 hooks clip into spots on the sheet. And this just really locks the pillow in place. It doesn't really move side to side or forwards and backwards, and that's awesome. I'm a big fan of pillows having straps in order to lock them onto sleeping pads, but this system is a little bit more lightweight and just as effective at locking the pillow onto the sleeping pad. It's also a reason why I don't think the uninsulated hood really makes a lot of sense, other than you can kind of tuck the quilt into the side of it, because you don't need it to hold the pillow down. You can have it laying off the back and the pillow is still going to be locked in due to those hooks. We talk about sleep systems all of the time, but usually it's taking one sleeping pad from one brand, a quilt or a sleeping bag from another brand, a pillow from another brand, and kind of putting it all together. What I love about this is that the system is designed to work together. So it's very effective, and you get a lot of little design details that really help you get a good night's sleep when you're out in the backcountry. Things like the little clips for the pillow, or even the little clip on the footbox of the quilt in order to open it up. I think this system really brings together the benefits of a sleeping bag and the benefits of a quilt. You're going to have the draft reduction of a sleeping bag as well as the ease of use, but then you get the weight savings of a quilt and the ability to toss and turn inside of this system really easily like you can with a quilt. This system could use pretty much any sleeping pad that you want with it. So if you don't think the Zenbivy sleeping pad is for you, go check out this video where I compare the top comfort sleeping pads out there. Like I said, I've tested dozens of sleeping pads, and these are the ones that I find the most comfortable. That being said, the Zenbivy sleeping pad would now make it onto that list.